Welcome back to the channel. It is March 2025 and that means it's Marcintosh again. So today we're having a video about this, the Apple Macintosh Classic II, also known as the computer that tried to kill me. So welcome to my video about the Classic II. This is the bag in which it came. I'm really lucky, it's an original Apple compact bag. It's in not too bad condition, a bit dusty on the top. It was much dustier when I got this. I have cleaned it up a little bit, but inevitably dust returns. But basically, I bought this as a non-working Mac about 4 years ago, and indeed it wasn't working when I got it, and I'll just talk you through a little bit about that later on. But let's just see what I got when I opened this up when I got back. So as I said, it comes in this really lovely Apple bag. Got handles, pockets for your accessories and keyboards and stuff. And the original Mac was quite a compact machine, and it did have that carry handle on the top, but it was kind of designed to be moved around. Computers are cheap these days, relatively speaking, but back in 1984, when the first Mac came out, they were quite expensive things, so moving it from one place to another kind of made sense. The Classic II came out in 1991 and was designed to be kind of the cheap end of the Apple Mac range. It was the cheapest monochrome computer they sold, priced around about $1,000. It was also sold under the Performer 200 brand, when it was aimed kind of more at the home market. It was the last Mac to use the monochrome display in the compact form factor, and because of that, it's a bit of a end of an era type machine, which is why I wanted to get one. Let's get it out and have a look and see what's in here. So here is the keyboard. Now, in fact, this computer, when I got it, came with 2 keyboards and 2 mice. And this is the one that I kept with this to make it era complete. Around the other end, there is a pocket here. And this would have originally had the instructions and software in it, I imagine. You get to it by opening up the zip on the top with this rather strange diagonal arrangement of the zip. Once we get inside, you'll see why that is. So basically in the lid section here, you've got room for some pockets, and in there you might keep, for example, a mouse. There's also this soft pad on the top to protect the top of the machine, and there's a convenient carry handle, so you can literally just lift it out and put it down. So design-wise, the Classic II is almost exactly the same as the standard Classic, the one that came before it. Although technically the one that came before this is actually the SE30, that's what it's most like. And the reason for that is it's got the same sort of processor. In fact, it's got exactly the same processor as the SE30 had. But because it's the Classic range and it's the budget range from Apple, they intentionally kind of limited it by using a 16-bit data bus and limiting the maximum amount of memory to 10 megabytes. So it's not quite as powerful as the SE30, even though it's kind of replacing it. And there are very reasons for that. Basically, the product line at Apple was changing quite a lot at this point in time after a change of CEO. But looks-wise, it is a compact Mac. It's very, very similar to the original Mac, the 128. There's a few kind of design differences, but basically it's pretty much exactly the same, very similar dimensions, same sort of aesthetic, all in one. Keyboard and mouse is all you need. An appliance, basically. So here we've got the super drive. So this can read and write other operating system floppy disk images. So it can read and write DOS, and it can read and write, I think, Apple II Pro DOS, maybe. We've got a logo here and the coloured Apple icon as it was at the time. Got the 9-inch black and white screen, standard 512 by 342 resolution. Nothing there has changed from 1984, basically. So 7 years later, this is very, very similar. The advantage of that is that it will still run all those classic applications that you had on your Mac, but it will just run them quite a lot faster. Around the side, you've got some air vents down the bottom. I've got a speaker grill, so some of the earlier compact Macs didn't have that speaker grill. The speaker was inside and it was a little bit muted. Also on the side we have the interrupt and reset buttons. The other side also has air vents in it. Around the back it's very much a classic Mac in the compact form factor. Hold handle up here, some air vents down hiding in there. Around the back, another air vent here, power in. And we've got a cover here for what used to be the battery compartment on the previous models. The battery's now moved to the motherboard on this one. We've got a moulded information label rather than a stuck-on label here. Serial number, securing mechanism, the Apple proprietary one. And then you've got your audio, ADB, you've got your SCSI, and your external floppy disk connector. And this was the last Mac to have an external floppy disk connector, apparently. Then you've got a couple of serial ports and your speakers out. So pretty much the classic Mac appearance, which is why the name came about, I assume. This particular one's got some scratches on it, but it's not too badly yellowed, which is nice. It's a little bit grubby, it still needs a proper clean, but otherwise it's actually in pretty good condition. Now when I first got this, it wasn't actually working, and it was sold to me as not working. That was fine. I was prepared to take it on and have a little look at it. My soldering and diagnostic skills are not brilliant. 4 years ago they were much worse, but I thought I'd have a little go and at least a little look at it. When I opened up the box, I was quite pleasantly surprised to have 2 keyboards and 2 mice. That was a bit of a bonus. I didn't pay very much for this because it was sold as not working. And in fact, when I got it, the case screws weren't even in, so somebody had been tinkering with it relatively recently. Talking of case screws, so for all these classic Macs, you're going to need a Torque screwdriver to get the 4 screws out. There's 2 here, 2 up here. There isn't one in the battery compartment anymore because that is fake / covered up. But the 2 at the top are quite recessed, so you will need a long-handled Torque screwdriver to get those out. It doesn't need to be this long, although this seems to be the length that most of them come in if you ask for a long one. It probably only needs to be about 2/3 of that, but you do need a longer than average Torque screwdriver to get these open. So let's do that now. So it needs to be T15, by the way. The 2 screws at the bottom are black to blend in with the black on the ports here, but also have a different thread because they're threading into metal, not plastic. So you can't get them in the wrong way around, basically. Now, before I open this up, I need to show you something else. So inside this envelope is the thing that I've been waiting to get hold of for a couple of years before I can fully finish refurbishing this computer. And when we open it up, you'll see why. So to get these open, once you've taken out the 4 screws, you need to separate the front and the back of the case from each other. And they're quite snugly fitted, so they don't just kind of fall apart very easily. The easiest way of getting these out is to put them face down and then pull the back off and let the weight of the monitor keep the front bit on the ground. So I put it on a soft mat. Let's try and separate the 2 bits. Here it comes. Now, if you've ever seen the inside of one of these before, you'll know that that's not supposed to be there. So that's what we're just going to talk about next. So this hasn't been switched on for probably 2 years, so I know that everything in here is fully discharged, but I'm just going to use a plastic pointing device just in case, and we'll come to the rest of that story in a bit. But basically, it's a very similar design to most of the compact Macs. You've got an analog board on this side, you've got a 9-inch monitor here with a black and white yoke, and then you've got a floppy disk drive, and hard disk drive mounted here, SCSI drive for the hard disk in this case. These do have a upgrade slot. They're described as not upgradable, but they do actually have an upgrade slot, and it's this vertical mounted thing here. It's not a PDS, it's not the same as in the SE, for example. It's proprietary to this particular model, but you can get an upgrade for this sort of. So let's just turn around the other side. So what we have here is a rather bodged job using a plastic document wallet, because what should be on here is an insulating piece of plastic, and that's what's in this envelope. That's what I have here, and as you can see, it's got this danger high voltage warning label on it, and that was applicable to me. So basically, when I got this, as I said, it was taken apart. I was trying to get it working. I was doing various different things, and it was the first compact Mac I'd ever taken apart, so I didn't know there was supposed to be an insulating sheet over this piece here, because it wasn't on it when I got it. I knew there was a lot of high voltage stuff going on over here, and on this side of the board, I was trying to keep my hands away from this. But at one point, I had this towards me so I could see the screen, and the power switch is on the back, so I leant around to get the power switch, and I did manage to touch one of the contacts on this analog board, and I did get an electrical shock. I don't know whether it was 240 volts or higher. I do know that all the lights, the ring main in the house went off, and people started complaining they couldn't get the internet. My hand was very fuzzy. I didn't have any burn marks on me, luckily, and I think I got off very lightly, but I did get electrocuted by this very computer. And so what I did is I hastily improvised this shield after looking at some other videos and realizing there should be some insulation over this. So what I've got here is a replacement insulation sheet from a dead Classic II that I bought on eBay. And one thing we're going to do today is install that. It's supposed to be held in place with some little push-through clips, 3 of them here. Those weren't on that when I got this system, and my replacement card hasn't got those either. So I'm going to use cable ties again like I did in this case. Let's take it apart a little bit more. So let's get rid of these. As I said, I know this hasn't been on for probably 2 years, so these should all be safe. Should be no voltages running through any of this. No capacitor should have any charge left. But if you're working inside electronic equipment, you need to know what you're doing, as I proved to myself 3 years ago. So this is the back side of the analog board. Now you can't hold, that's a bit jarring there, that's probably from when I got electrocuted. You can sometimes get some leaking capacitors, and I believe sometimes you get a bit of a residue along the bottom edge of the board. We haven't got that here, so that's reassuring. So there is this little upgrade slot on this Classic II, and if there's anything in here, you need to remove that before you can take out the motherboard tray, because it goes through this angled metal bracket straight onto the motherboard. So you need to take this out, and it's just a case of sliding it out upwards. So I'm very lucky. This machine came with this upgrade board in it already, and this is the maths coprocessor floating point unit card. And these are not rare, but they're pretty hard to get hold of. This is a synchronous one. This is a 16 megahertz version, and it's the maths card Classic Tube Performer 200. It hasn't got a manufacturer. Oh, it has. It's a Sonic Technologies one. So these were available to buy separately. You could make your spreadsheets go a little bit faster, or your CAD a little bit faster, by putting in one of these if that's what you're doing on these machines. Bearing in mind they're designed to be the budget end of the market, it's a little bit of a surprise to find one of these in here. You know, if you were doing CAD or big spreadsheets, you'd probably be using a different machine, one of the desktop-based ones. But it's nice to have this. Next thing to do if you want to disassemble this is to remove the SCSI cable to the drive, and the floppy cable to the floppy drive, and then this power cable. One thing to be careful of is when you're unplugging these, that you don't bang the back of the yoke on the monitor, otherwise you could break it. And then your machine will no longer display. So for visibility, I'm just going to remove these cables completely, just so you can see what's going on. So here we have the SCSI drive. So these came with 40 or 80 megabyte drives from the factory. I can't see an Apple logo on this side of the drive. There may be one on the other. So I don't know if this is the original. So horror of horror to Steve Jobs, these machines do actually have a fan. This is the fan vent here at the bottom. Sucks air in through here and then passes it through the top of the machine. This is made possible because this motherboard is now much smaller than it was on the earlier compact Macs. It's about half the size it was, and that's due to a lot of integration on the motherboard. So to remove the motherboard, you literally just pull it backwards like you do on most other compact Macs. And there out it comes. So here's the motherboard in all its glory, and it is quite small, and that's because around this time Apple were also developing the LC, which is their low-cost colour computer. So this is their low-cost monochrome computer with a built-in display. The LC was a different range, but it was designed still for the budget market, but with colour. But they used a lot of integration on the motherboards to allow them to be smaller and cheaper. So here, starting on this side, you've got this expansion connector that you can either put memory or a maths coprocessor in. I don't believe there are any other options available, at least not from Apple. Here you've got the ROM. Here's some RAM slots, so you can upgrade the RAM. In this case, it has been. You've got some VLSI chips, which is the basically integration of all the discrete components into one big chip. You've got a SCSI controller here. Not sure what that is. It's probably the floppy disk controller. And then over here is the processor itself. Across the back, you've got all the ports. Connector for the hard disk and the floppy. And one thing you may have noticed already, if you're eagle-eyed on this, is that this board has been recapped. And as I understand it, originally these would have been surface-mounted caps, and these have all been replaced with these through-hole caps which are all sticking up. Now, the guy that I bought this off said he couldn't get it working. I don't know if he was the person who recapped it, or whether there was some other person he bought it off who had already recapped it and he just couldn't get it working either. So I'm not exactly sure what the history is. But when I got it, it definitely wasn't working. From a troubleshooting point of view, what I always do is take everything out. So we remove the battery, which obviously hadn't leaked. I removed all the RAM, tried powering up and see what happened. It just wasn't coming on at all. And so next I would then have a look at reseating components that were socketed. So in this case, it's just the 2 ROM slots. So I took those out, deoxided it, put it back in, still no boot. And then I wondered, was there something special about these ROMs? Were they the correct ROMs? Had they been put in the right way around? So there's a little mark on the edge of the ROMs on one end to see which way around they're in. And they were correctly installed left to right, but what somebody had done is swap them over. So the low and high ROMs had been swapped at some point. So by looking at the part numbers, you can actually work out which way around they're supposed to be, looking at some reference photos. Once I swapped those around, this machine did boot. So I got really lucky. It looks like the motherboard is actually fully functional. It's already been recapped. Just those ROMs are in the wrong sockets. Upgrades wise, this has had some RAM upgrade. I don't know what's in these two. I'm not going to take them out to find out because it's very easy to break this kind of RAM slot. These do have the metal catches rather than plastic, but even so, I don't want to break the RAM catches if I can. I'm not going to upgrade the RAM in this video, so we don't need to worry about what is on there. So by default, this comes with 2 megs on the board already, and then you can have these 2 extra sockets filled up to a maximum of 10 megabytes of RAM, same as the LC range. And that was a deliberate decision by Apple to limit the upgradability of this machine, so it didn't compete with their bigger models and their more expensive and therefore more profitable models. But equally, they wanted a way to have a low-cost computer that they could sell to schools and under the Performer brand to home users as well. So it had some upgradability. If you needed a bigger app, or if you had a new operating system that needed more RAM, then at least you could do that. As I said, we've been lucky here. The battery hasn't leaked. There's no battery in there at the moment, and it's missing the top half of the holder, which I have somewhere else. But otherwise, the motherboard is in pretty good condition. There's a couple of little solder burns on the plastics where these capacitors were replaced. So the analog board, I don't think has had any work done to it, but it also looks like it's in pretty good condition. There's no obvious signs of any leaking capacitors, so that's good. So what we're going to do now is reassemble this, put the new part in that we received in the post recently, and switch it on, see if it's still working, because I haven't used it for a couple of years. Forgot the math code processor. So this is the board I received in the post, and it's got a cutout for the speaker, so it's definitely from a Classic or a Classic II. I was told it's from a Classic, and it is exactly the right size, so that's all good. So I'm just going to put some cable ties through the 3 holes, as we don't have the original little poppers to go through. Frustratingly, I've run out of small clips, so I've only got 3 of the 4 or 5 that should be installed. I think it's good enough. I don't think it's going to flop around. Another thing to note is that this inside coating of the case, which presumably is to combat RF, is also electrically conductive. So if you put the case back on without anything protecting the analog board, you will also get a short and a bang and a little bit of smoke, potentially. The case doesn't have signatures in. This is not an early one with the development team. There's autographs on the inside. This particular case was made in Singapore, apparently. The specific model number is M4150 This says it's assembled in Ireland. So although this case was manufactured in Singapore, this is one of the ones that was subsequently assembled in Ireland for the European market. So getting back together is a case of just marrying up the two halves. Making sure they line up before you press anything. Just press down gently, and then when you start inserting the screws, it tightens up very quickly. I'm just going to put two in diagonally so I can stand it up on its feet. And put the other two back in. Having a magnetic tip helps with this last bit. And because you're screwing into plastic, it's definitely worth going reverse until you hear the clunk before tightening up, and then you can reuse the existing thread, because if you do that multiple times you will lose all traction. So there we are. The Classic II is back together with all the correct components inside. Let's see if it switches on. So I haven't cleaned the system at all yet really. It's got a very grubby keyboard, but a lovely feeling keyboard. This is the Apple Keyboard 2 with the ADB interface. And then the mouse is the standard desktop mouse, model number A9M0331. Now I'm not sure if these were the ones that originally came with the Classic II. I haven't been able to find that out definitively. If you know, leave a comment down below. I would like to get the original keyboard if this is not the correct one. Ditto with the mouse. Okay, we have a power lead in. Let's turn it on. This time I'll do it with the case and the shield in place, not get electrocuted. Okay, we have a chime and I can hear the hard drive spinning up. The screen has come on. Let me just switch the camera so we can get rid of that flicker. Not got rid of it completely, but it is better. Welcome to Macintosh. So it is actually booting off the hard drive. That's great. And although you're lacking colour on these machines, you are getting a very crisp display. That is a really sharp image. It's a little bit short top to bottom, I think, so it might be that it could do with a little bit of adjustment. There are some potentiometers on the back that you can access with the case off, or probably if you take that battery cover off, you can probably access them that way, can't you? The fake battery door, that is. Okay, so we have booted up. What have we got? So we've got a Macintosh Classic II, system software 7.1. So these originally, when they first came out, came with system 6 something. I think they got to 7.5 from memory. So it's running system 7. That's probably about the best option for this machine, given that it's got a hard drive and got the full amount of memory. So it's got 10 megabytes of RAM installed, 8.5 of that's free. So this is probably the most maxed out Classic II you can get. So it's got the full complement of RAM and it's got that maths coprocessor. It's got a hard drive. So we're using over 40 megabytes of the storage. So I'm assuming it's an 80 megabyte hard drive. Otherwise that would be completely full. So there's already some software in here. So I haven't reset this. This is as I received it. So it's got Mathematica on it. An intro to L in A1G. Is that a class? Was this used by a student, or is this a manual of some kind? Okay, we'll perhaps have a look at that in a little bit. So Mathematica is a maths modelling bit of software. So this is version 2.83 enhanced. I wonder if it's got a copyright message on it. See who owned this before. Okay, so this was owned by a university, Brunel University in the UK. So we're not going to play with Mathematica. I don't know how to use it, and I'm certainly not going to get the best out of it. So let's just quit that, and instead let's have a look at Control Panel. See what's going on there. So all the usual. One thing that's interesting about the Classic II is that it doesn't have a brightness control under the lip. It's done in software, so we control it here using this slider. And I believe you can also do that with the keys 1 to 9. You can. Let's make it a little bit easier for the camera to be able to read that. We've got a color control panel. As we have no color, that's interesting. Black and white or grey. Is this a single bit display? Is it black and white only, or is there a grayscale as well? I don't know, actually, definitively. I think it is just black and white, isn't it? Yeah. Date and time, there's no battery, so the date and time are going to be incorrect. It thinks it's 1956. It is definitely not 1956. This would be science fiction. Looks like the standard setup of control panels, nothing unusual in there that I'm not expecting except for superclock. So yeah, so we can't choose anything other than greys in the color option, and that gives us black and white as the only option. So black and white. So it's just got the built-in display and built-in video. So you can technically attach an external monitor to this by using the very obscure SCSI to display adapter. So there is a device, or there were several devices available that attached to the SCSI port that basically gave you another display in software. And obviously I've never seen one of those myself. I think Action Retro made a video about one recently. I think he got 3 monitors on his classic Mac. So yeah, so black and white is the only option, no external options in the standard setup. Mouse, let's just turn up the movement a little bit because we're used to really high resolution precision mice these days. And sound. So you adjust the volume. Built-in microphone. I don't think it's got a built-in microphone. It's got definitely got a built-in mic input, but I don't think it's got a built-in microphone, has it? I don't think that's part of the original operating system.
No, you don't want to do that. You want to do this.
Sounding somebody at Brunel's having a great time at their university. Fine. So nice. Got some customization there. Use some groups. So there may be more than one user. Let's have a look. No, just the one. So looking at the file manager here, we have 41 megabytes used, 35 megabytes available. So it is an 80 megabyte drive on this machine. So this was the top spec machine at the time. What else is on here? DCAD calculator. So some other engineering software by the looks of it. Mac Equation, Vantage and WordMaster. I'm not sure what either of those are. Just in fact, and obviously antivirus. So performance-wise, this is the 030 version of the processor running at 16 megahertz. It is running on a 16-bit bus though, rather than 32-bit bus, so it is a bit slower than the SE30 that it replaced. And different benchmarks give different numbers, but it's about 85% the speed. It's actually not that bad considering how compromised it was in that sense. And it's probably fast enough for a compact Mac. Having that maths coprocessor in there will definitely have helped certain applications. Because we've got an engineering kind of bent to the software that's on here, you can understand why the maths coprocessor is in there. So scan went completely fine, no viruses at the Brunel University in 1993, so that's good. What else is on here? We've got Vantage and WordMaster. I'm not sure what they are. Let's look on the hard drive. Macintosh Basics, is that the little tutorial? It is a little tutorial for using Macintosh with this guy from Fallout. Maybe not. So, press return key to continue. So basically how to use a mouse, that kind of thing. So we don't need to see this anymore. Can't get rid of it. Okay, I can't quit from this. Nothing I'm trying is working. So perhaps only something on the first screen, but it's very annoying that you can't quit halfway through. You have to power cycle it, which I dislike doing because of that mechanical hard drive. And also because there's no battery in here, we get the default brightness and default mouse every time we power cycle, so maybe we should put a battery in there. So yeah, we're not going to use Fallout Guy, we're going to look at something else. That looks like a standard system install, so it looks like all the apps are installed over here. Mac Write 2, Right Now, Word 4, Mac Draw, Mac Paint, Vette, New MATLAB, and Mathematica. So we've got the standard kind of Apple produced software, Mac Write 2. Right Now, let's have a little look at that. So it appears to be just a standard word processor type thing. Maybe has some features that an academic would use over Mac Write. Let's get out of that. Word 4 for Mac. Good old-fashioned Microsoft Word. Don't need to see that, we've seen it before. What's Vette? Vette with an exclamation mark. That makes me feel like maybe it's a bit of fun. Start Vette. So this looks like it might be a Corvette's racing-y game. Copyright 1991. Looks like we're based in San Francisco. And there's your Corvette. Just running the poor guy over. So little specs about your Corvette here, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, most importantly. And you can choose whether you have the stock one or the ZR1, the twin turbo, or the sledgehammer. Let's go ZR1. Definitely trainee. Some nice monochrome graphics. It's amazing what you can do without colour. Okay, so this looks like, is this who you're playing against, I'm guessing? Definitely San Francisco. So we've got to go to Vista Point. Course 1, accept. What is the curb weight of the stock Corvette on page 50 of the manual? So this is the copyright protection. I've got no idea. It'll be in pounds, so let's go 2456. No. Okay, so we're not going to get a chance to play that. What a shame, because that looked like it might have been fun in black and white. Oh, hang on. Let's play anyway, is it? Go. So. There's a none there. Is this Grand Theft Auto? Okay, I need to change gear. There we go. So arrow keys for performance and number keys for changing gear. Maybe. Haven't worked out how to change gear yet. So the brake is the brake, spacebar is the brake. It's going to take a very long time if you can't work out how to change gears. Oh well, possibly not the most exciting game for a classic Mac. That's quit. Okay, so definitely a little bit of light-hearted entertainment, mostly academic work by the looks of it. We didn't look at any dates. So it looks like the last modified date was 19 March 1994. So this came out in 91, it's on sale till 93, and so this was used possibly a year or two during its lifetime. Okay, let's work out if the floppy disk drives are working. So we may not have been able to play Vette, but we can play Lemmings. So from memory, we just copied the files onto the hard disk and then it works. I don't think there's an installer. So let's see if this floppy disk works. I know these disks work themselves. I've used them on other computers. It's appeared on the desktop, so it does appear to be working. Let's see if we can actually copy anything. Lemmings with black and white graphics, that's exactly what we need. Yeah, seems to be working, reading that disk perfectly fine. So this game came out in 1992 or thereabouts, so this would have been the target market for this machine. And even the inject works, brilliant. Let's have a quick look and see what's in the wastebasket. It's a bit rude, I know, but nothing there. Lots of interest. Levels and sound. Excellent, read that disc no problem. I think that's the colour version, so we probably don't need it, but we'll copy it over anyway. Okay, let's play Lemmings. Oh, Okay, copy protection passed. Let's go. So it's interesting how they managed to. It's interesting how they managed to get the monochrome graphics to work. It actually looks much higher resolution than the 512 by 342. It's a little bit hard to make out the icons across the bottom, what they all mean without the colour, but on the whole it seems fine. This doesn't work quite so well in monochrome, the thumbnail of the map, but otherwise very playable. How's the scrolling? It's pretty decent speed. Yeah, okay, we're going to be here for hours, so maybe we should stop soon. But certainly a little bit of light gaming possible on the Classic II. Yeah, that's not the way to finish a level, is it? So there we have it, the Apple Mac Classic II, the last compact Mac that was made in black and white, the last to have a floppy disk port, and you know, quite an iconic design, I think, and probably the most usable of all the compact Macs if you want a black and white one, because it's just a little bit faster than all the others. Still got the same resolution screen, so all the software should work pretty well, and this one has the optional floating point unit as well, which makes it a bit more speedy than average. Perfectly good for playing Lemmings, and we'll get some other games on there and have a little play. I think we'll wipe the hard drive just to remove all that university stuff. But we know the floppy disk is working. System 7 supports CD-ROMs, so we can put a SCSI CD-ROM on the back and load some games in that way if we needed to. Although I do have a full System 7 on floppy disk. This system does need a good clean, particularly the keyboard is very grubby. But I would be interested in knowing exactly which keyboard came with this out of the factory and which mouse, because I don't think it was this one. If anybody knows, please put a comment down below. Definitely one to be keeping for the collection, even though it tried to kill me. That was most my own fault though. So I should have spotted that there should have been some insulation on that analog board. But I'm glad I've got that installed now. We can have this running safely without any fear of anything melting or catching fire. So I hope you enjoyed the video. First one of Macintosh 2025. YouTube's going to recommend some videos here and here. Don't forget to check those out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like that sort of thing. And we'll see you in the next one.